Right, I wanted to do a brief overview of San Francisco, the Presidio military base, and pedo satanic sacrifice of children. All right, so this is a good one. This is pretty much regurgitated information from a guy named Douglas Dietrich. I'm a huge fan of him. Been listening to him for years. He has Douglas Dietrich, Douglas Diet Rich. That's how you spell his last name. He broadcasts on YouTube. Huge influence on my conspiracy culture. I still listen to this day, but he broadcasts on YouTube, and I just felt compelled to put this information out. It's very fascinating information to me personally, and I'm just surprised not many people know about this information. So let's get into it. So at first, I wanted to start with San Francisco. Okay, San Francisco, and we're going to focus in on the San Francisco Bay. And under one side of the San Francisco Bridge, there's a military base called the Presidio military base. This was it's a decommissioned base. It's now a park, but at one point in the 80s and early 90s it was functional as a base, and then before that 70s and 60s obviously. So that section of San Francisco has always been a military frontier. So when the Spaniards were colonizing the west coast of the United States, they also had a base at the Presidio. And that's the kind of base where you see in the pirate movies where the sides of the mountain were carved out and they had cannons in them. So if anyone was encroaching on their bay, they would shoot. Or yeah, so they would. So that's the kind of, and they would run ammunitions under the ground, right? They had all these tunnels underground. They'd run ammunitions back and forth through. So that's what the Spanish did, all right? And that was a long time ago, the 1700s. So fast forward, let's go around World War I era. The United States was being a homosexual in the military was very illegal, pretty illegal, and there was a lot of homosexuals, especially sailors. Sailors, a bunch of guys. You put them on a boat for a long time together, whatever. So that being homosexual in the military, that being the case, the military would do stings and dress up guys in women's outfits. So I live in Toledo, Ohio, right? And the show MASH from the 70s, 80s, they would have a guy. He's from Toledo. He was always say he's from Toledo in the show, and he'd dress up in women's outfit. He's trying to get kicked out of the military because he didn't want to serve anymore. So it was a joke of the show. Anyways, back to the story. Being in the U.S. military, homosexuals are it's illegal to be that way. So what they would do is they'd have a bunch of these sailors that were gay. They'd ship them out to San Francisco, and then in San Francisco they just unload them there. Just get them far away from out of sight and out of mind. So that's what contributed to the culture of San Francisco now, right? So it has a very zesty culture, right? Very interesting place. There's a huge range of dynamics within the income, and the wealth, and the proximity at which they live together out in San Francisco. Anyways, so also San Francisco and the Presidio, a lot of people would move there. A lot of veterans would live there because the base would offer a lot of VA benefits. It had the hospital, had everything had everything these these veterans needed, and just in general, California being a blue state is a very liberal state, so they make sure to everyone give out benefits. A little more generous with the benefits from the state. All right, so that's how the Presidio is. The Presidio, and let's get into about the 80s now, late 80s, early 90s. The Presidio Military Academy is still functioning. The base is still functioning. People are working on it. There's a daycare center, and that's where all the workers on the base keep their kids. Their kids are in daycare while they're at work, right? So a lot of the kids were getting STDs. They're coming home with they're getting sick and getting diagnosed with STDs, and they were asking what the hell happened, and the kids are telling the parents that they were abused at the daycare center on the military base by the employees, which were military and government employees. Long story short, the kids, there's a lot of victims, a lot of kid victims. You can look this all up. Was the satanic panic, and there are people that will scoff at that, but there is some validity to Satanism and satanic sacrifices in particular. And it's not really looked into as much as it should be. As a side note, San Francisco's home to many churches of Satan. So if you want to, there's a lot of them there, and they're still there. But if you want to do your own research into that, I'm not really keen on the knowledge on that area. And so anyways, so the kids would tell the parents and tell the reporters that they're taken down into secret caves, right? And there was apparently an investigation, and these caves were never found. But like I said, those caves, they ran ammunition. So they had caves in there since the 1700s, the Spanish. And so those were the caves the kids were probably abused in. Anyways, what eventually happens is the story goes that the parents got so upset that they burnt down the daycare. The parents did, thus destroying any future evidence, that could be collected, or, So that's the story. And I don't think many people really got prosecuted for it. I think a few guys got prosecuted for it. But Douglas, he, his stuff, Douglas is, for everyone, he's in this world of fantasy, alright? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but he operates out of this idealistic. He's very knowledgeable. Don't get me wrong. He's very smart. He has a lot of information, and he has great stories. That's why I like listening to him so much. I learn a lot from the guy. But some of the stuff, even I think, is just too damn far-fetched. But, and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but he has. So I'll let you discover what I'm saying on your own if you choose to listen to him. But that is the case, and yeah, it's a fascinating story, and it involves the military, it involves the government, it involves satanic practices. Well, that's the questionable part, the satanic part. But there's a lot more information. But that's some pretty satanic shit, you know what I mean? And now the base is a park, and that's how it functions, so. Anyways, that's a brief overview of just some nuggets of information. Oh, a good one, if you stuck around long enough to hear this out. So the Tenderloin. There's a district in San Francisco called the Tenderloin District. Most people don't understand why it's called the Tenderloin, and the reason is because that the police that would work it would get hazard pay because it would be such dangerous, awful conditions, very hazardous area. So they'd make a hazard pay whenever they would work that beat. And that means that when they'd go out to dinner that night, they can afford the Tenderloin dinner with their other buddies, their work buddies. They go out to the cafe. So they start calling it the Tenderloin District because the cops would be able to afford Tenderloin. Yeah, not many people know that. I told that story to a guy that was probably 75 years old. He said he lived his whole life in San Francisco and never knew that story. So, pretty good stuff.